I can remember seeing magazine articles on Rayman as far back as 1993. It was reportedly in development for the Atari ST before moving on to the Super Nintendo and its ill-fated CD-ROM add-on. Once that project was canned, it flipped over to the Atari Jaguar, where it was heavily advertised as a system exclusive. I must say I was always blown away by the screenshots. I mean, this sucker was leagues better than most of the other two-dimensional visuals we were accustomed to. But development was slow, really slow. While it was advertised for release as early as 1994, it wasn't until September of 1995 before it was finally finished and released. And a Jaguar exclusive it was not. It was available for the PlayStation at its North American launch, and then the Saturn that following November. It made its mark on all three consoles thanks to its absolutely gorgeous visuals and familiar play mechanics. Every publication under the sun praised its design. The PlayStation version would be a top seller in many regions and is often ranked as one of the very best games for Atari's so-called 64-bit Jaguar. Even on the two-dimensional powerhouse Saturn, the visuals really made you take notice. But was this game as good as everyone made it out to be? It had the visuals of a next-generation two-dimensional platformer, but was the gameplay there? In this episode, we will be taking a look at Rayman for the Atari Jaguar, the Sony PlayStation, and the Sega Saturn. We all know it was a beauty visually on all three platforms, but was there anything else there really worth praising? Let's find out. Our hero Rayman happens to live on a harmonious planet where the great Protoon oversees the balance of nature and the creatures that inhabit it. The Electoons are part of this great system, orbiting the Protoon and binding the ecosystem together into one big happy family. But as you'd expect, an evil guy appears called Mr. Dark and steals the great Protoon, sending ripples of chaos throughout the land. The great fairy Batilla tries to save the Protoon, but is defeated easily. Electoons are scattered everywhere in the ruckus, causing all sorts of trouble on the land below. Realizing there is trouble afoot, our hero Rayman embarks on a mission to collect the Electoons, defeat the diabolical Mr. Dark, and free the Protoon. The future of this land is in your hands, and you're the only one that can do anything about it. The story here isn't just for shits and giggles, it's actually the entire point of the game. As you move through the stages, your job is to rescue the Electoons strewn throughout the area. Some are easy to find and some not so much. You have enemies to worry about as well, bad guys that not only get in your way, but actively try and end your adventure before it ever really begins. The deck is actually stacked against you pretty heavily. Rayman is fairly weak in the beginning and only has the most basic of abilities. You can pretty much only jump and climb. This leaves you quite the easy target until you gain additional powers. Those powers come as you explore the stages and make your way to the fairy Batilla. She will actually bestow you with the ability to punch attack, run, grab platform ledges, and even the power of limited flight. Gaining these powers also allow you to go back to the levels you have previously defeated and re-explore them. New powers can mean access to new areas and thus new discoveries. There are also power-ups for your life and abilities. You can increase your energy reserves and you can beef up your punch with both speed and power increases. There are also orbs in the world called tings that when collected can give you an extra life or be traded for bonus games with the magician. Checkpoints are located throughout the stages and come in the form of a photographer, and there is a save system in place to keep your game preserved where you left it. Finally, there are 6 worlds for you to cover, everyone broken down into multiple sub-levels loaded with things to find. Of course, big bad bosses await you at various points, and with limited continues, this is a challenge even for the most skilled veteran. Usually during the graphics segment of my reviews, I describe to you my feelings on the technical and artistic merits of the software. But do I really need to do anything at all here? Just take a look at your screen and soak it all in. This is simply beautiful on every level. The backgrounds are lush and full of color and detail. The sprites are impeccably animated and look like they belong to this ecosystem. The stages have a huge amount of variety as well. You start off in the Dream Forest, full of life and vegetation. As you move area to area, the entire focus and theme changes heavily, from stages full of musical instruments all the way to an area built by candy and sweets. Every animation is meticulous, beginning with our main hero all the way down to the smallest plants and creatures. Even the stages themselves are animated with delightful touches like dancing flowers and eyes that follow you around. Take a moment and appreciate that parallax scrolling too. Not every stage has it, but when it's shown, it's smooth and well done. The entire presentation is an evolution of what started back on 16-bit consoles, and with the power of the then brand new 32-bit hardware, we were seeing things we only dreamed of just a few years before. The only thing left to ruin the party is the performance, but that is spot on as well. This is pretty much two-dimensional perfection, and I never felt it struggle once across my entire capture for any of the three consoles. In fact, this is a level of two-dimensional graphical bliss that transcends time and generations. You can set this one beside any PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, or PlayStation 4 two-dimensional title, and it still holds its own in color, detail, and animation. The only complaint I can level at it is the somewhat janky design of the arms and legs being missing on the characters. Each of the sprites just having floating hands and feet looks strange at first, but you do get used to it. By the second stage, you won't care at all. As for differences between the consoles, there isn't much. The Jaguar hangs in there strong with both the Saturn and the PlayStation, with the latter proving it's quite the capable two-dimensional machine itself. There are a few differences between all the versions visually, but it's nothing major. The Jaguar lacks parallax in some areas, the PlayStation has some transparent fog in places the others don't, and the Saturn has some cool transitional scenes after you defeat a stage. The CD-ROM versions of course have a spoken and animated opening movie, while the Jaguar relies on the tried and true still images and text to play out the story. But make no mistake, it's a beauty no matter the platform. I'll be honest with you here, when I first heard the music and sound effects in Rayman, I found them quite irritating. It's really happy and upbeat, with a bit more environmental composition than I'd like. But with time it became clear I was finding this stuff more and more suitable to the stage designs. It all just fit, and after a few hours, I realized I was enjoying it a lot more. As you have probably guessed, the Jaguar's sound effects and music are quite different from the CD-based machines. I'm going to give you a taste of what it offers on each platform and see if you like it. So where to begin on the critique of Rayman? The visuals certainly get no negative points because each version is a looker, plain and simple. Even with the various differences, the end product never fails to impress. The sound grew on me and I came to enjoy it as well, even the cartridge-based Jaguar. That leaves the gameplay, a two-dimensional platformer that wasn't a lot different than the stuff available on the Genesis and Super Nintendo. But this gameplay is solid, feels responsive, and never leaves you in a situation where you feel you can't do what you want. You gain powers as the game progresses, and these powers become quite useful. The exploration factor is also welcome and done so that you replay much of the area you've already cleared looking for new items you may have missed. The production quality, the core mechanics, the sound, and the visuals all represent a game well made start to finish. But Rayman certainly has a big issue that needs discussing. The opening areas will lull you into a sense of safety, making you think this is a laid-back adventure that will quickly fall beneath your incredible skill. And then, just around the second world or so, it breaks out a baseball bat named Punishment and absolutely pulverizes you with it. This game is brutal the deeper you get into it, and it's the kind of challenge that is born of quick and easy deaths that can soak up lives like they're nothing. And that is my biggest complaint. So much of this game's design is based on tedious platforming that is surrounded by insta-deaths. There are long stretches where you won't see a single enemy and it's just nasty bottomless pits and spikes to rob you of your sanity. It really does get to a point where it never lets up and stage after stage you are pummeled into submission unless you have the patience of a Buddhist monk or the skills of a speedrunning god. What starts out so simple and so laid back ultimately becomes something that most gamers will simply not have the ability to finish. I have played Rayman many times on the Jaguar, Saturn, and PlayStation, and though I have gotten quite far in them all, I have never seen the ending in any of them. Despite the super cute visuals, this makes games like Castlevania and Shinobi seem like they were designed for your little sibling. Of the three versions, I actually find the Jaguar the easiest to play. It lacks the momentum-based speed increases in areas like Bandland, and the overall game seems a bit slower and more forgiving, especially where pinpoint accuracy is required in the heavy platforming segments. Cheats will soften the blow of the difficulty across all three versions, but if you plan to beat this one the good old-fashioned way, prepare yourself for some serious time investment. So, does Rayman get the Sega X seal of approval? Despite the challenge, absolutely. It's still a well-made, great-looking adventure on all three platforms I covered here. The first two worlds offer lots of fun before the difficulty starts to kick in, but even then, a little patience should get you into the late game. My only real problem is that the late game starts to rely on exhausting platform and environmental challenges that really start to strangle the fun. It gets so heavy-handed with the complexity of timing that I got to the point where I just didn't want to play it for long periods of time due to frustration. But I can definitely see a segment of gamer that will love this, right down to its punishing difficulty. It offers so much to see and do, and if you put the time into it, you are damn sure gonna get your money's worth out of this one. Ubisoft wasn't known at the time for being a maker of games with such incredible quality, but it certainly put them on the map afterwards. Despite the sales and popularity of the initial releases here, the 32X and 3DO versions were cancelled before release, never to be seen again. In the years following its debut on the Jaguar, Saturn, and PlayStation, Rayman was ported to the PC, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, DS, and mobile devices. It also spawned numerous sequels that continue to be available on modern platforms. Despite my misgivings about the late game design and the challenge that it brings, I cannot deny Rayman is an excellent title. It has visuals that rival the mighty Astal, gameplay that brings a challenge and complexity that rivals the most difficult Super Mario levels. It's a slice of 90s nostalgia that elevated the library of every platform it was produced for. Is a game like that worth adding to your collection? Absolutely. I'm Sega X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.